It's bad.
Now, he doesn't have to be your lawyer. We're not gonna take any legal advice from him. We're gonna do it. Okay. Good evening. We're gonna call the meeting, our workshop to order. This is a workshop for a discussion of food trucks. We really, as council, want to get your input as citizens, property owners, food truck owners. We want to all work together to try to do what's best for our city and make everything, make everybody as happy as we can make everybody. You're not gonna please everybody, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try. We're gonna work on this. So what I'm gonna do is I'd like for you, instead of everybody coming up telling me the same thing, or telling us the same thing, is to come up, you know, and if you agree with a suggestion, a recommendation, you can give your opinion on something and give a solution for it. I think Adrian said that before, and that's an excellent way to kind of get input, and not just input, but what you feel a solution might be, or a resolution, or your thoughts on where that should be at. So, if, I'm going to use an example. If Mr. Harold stood up and he said, you know, I like da-da-da-da, and this is what we should do, I want you just at the end, when he gets ready to sit down, raise your hand if you liked it. That kind of gives us an idea of, was that a good idea, or based on what you guys think, and not just what we think, okay? All right, so I'm going to open it up to the floor. Don't everybody jump up here at once now. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. You'll just state your name.
Okay, Shelby Bush, Palm Street. How many of the food trucks do the people actually own the property they're on?
Okay, I know Michael owns his property.
Okay.
So Tex owns his property.
Did I make
Okay, he
sense?
does. He does not. Okay.
No.
I think
Bad
Bad
Mama
Mama owns their property, so that's two that I know.
I really think, in my
It's
opinion,
in their family.
it makes a difference if they own that property and they're paying taxes on that property. Just my opinion on that. I was wondering how many people actually own the property, and that was it. I think that makes a difference.
Thank you. So
raise our
let me
hand?
just, I'm sorry.
Are we supposed to raise our hand?
Hang on just a minute. Hang on 1 minute. I just want to clarify something on my, so you're saying owners versus renters of the property should be taken into account?
Absolutely.
All right?
And the reason was because of taxes.
Well, also, they own that property. They're not just coming in, renting the property, making money off of it, and moving on.
You know, again, I want to see hands like Rich and Cole everybody be, I know Rich was right at the time. So if you think that owning versus renting a piece of property for a food truck is,
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
could make a difference, raise your hand again. Okay, we good. Okay. It's not a deal killer by any means.
No,
Just-
I don't mean
It does
that,
make,
but I think it should be taken into
I think-
consideration.
I think that's a good, you know, thing to put on our, for us to look at and talk about maybe. Yes, sir, you come on up.
Hi, my name is Mark Rice.
Hey, Mark, hadn't seen you in a while.
Yeah,
Seen you the other day.
I try to lay low. Anyway, I'm not sure why, I have a vested interest of it, obviously, but I'm not sure how we start off here. Because the Florida law, state law on food trucks has recently changed, has it not?
Yeah, and we're aware of the law.
Okay,
And-
so how does that lay into the food trucks as relates to Mexico Beach?
Okay.
And the lady who asked the question, which was a very good question, by the way, but I think it states that as long as it has the landowner's permission,
I think that's our rule here. Is that right, Chris? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that one's ours. That's not a Florida statute.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but there is revenue, point being, they can lease that, they can work out, they being the food truck, could work out an arrangement with the landowner
and
that all of that gets
that
cut?
has been done, yes.
Okay, okay. So I'm a little bit at an odds.
So let me give you a little synopsis of what the Florida statute does. It takes care of the food trucks being legal for Florida, giving them their license, making sure they're inspected, all this stuff. Make sure we're getting safe food, pretty much, okay? What the municipality can do is regulate that, because the Florida statute does not prevent us, we cannot charge them any fees. We cannot tax them in any way. We can, we can't tax anyway. We can do fees on most things. If we decide, like the boat ramp, we decide to do fees. But we can't charge them any kind of fees or anything, permits, I guess, permit fees. We can't charge them. So,
Okay, so that is one item of discussion there. How do we get revenue coming in from those who do not have the landowner, that do not own the property? I mean, they should be.
I don't know that that's, I mean, I don't think anybody here
Somebody's
said.
paying taxes on it already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody's paying
That's
taxes.
what I mean.
Are they paying for undeveloped property
Yeah,
though?
empty
lot.
Empty lots.
Okay, hang on. Let's,
I'm just,
handle one at a
and I'm
time.
not trying to call, I'm just
Oh, no,
in
no.
a little bit of a loss as to
Right.
where the discussion is going.
okay, and we don't know where the discussion's
Okay.
going. That's why we're here, because we want to hear from you guys, ideas, what you think. I mean, you
Okay.
go, oh, well,
So it's just open it, there's, okay.
it's a workshop,
Okay.
open-ended. It
Thank you.
gives us the time to talk to you, and you a time to talk to us, and have good communication amongst the council and the residents, property owners, okay? Nancy?
Nancy Fall. I think what we're kind of looking at is maybe coming up with some regulations. I don't think any of us are against food trucks.
Right, I think
so
you
I
would be
think-
right in speaking that.
What we're kind of looking at is, unfortunately, it looks like they're kind of overtaking the town right now. So I think what we need to do is come up with some rules and regulations on what we've got and then go forward there. And these are some of the things I've kind of thought of, so I'll just read them out to you, if that's okay.
That's good.
The number of food truck permits allowed, limit where the food trucks can operate, limit the time a food truck can stay on one spot.
Okay, slow
I
down
know-
for a minute.
I'm sorry.
My shorthand's not gotten that good over the years.
I think our LDR states temporary, but nowhere does it define what temporary means.
Yeah. And there may
We've got to
be
define temporary,
a definition.
whether it's 6 months, year, whatever it is. It just needs a definition. Must not create unsafe egress or ingress.
Okay,
Buffers if it's up against residential
okay.
or commercial, I guess. They need to have a restroom and a hand washing station because, most of their clients, or not clients, but patrons are coming from the work site. They need a place to wash their hands. I think we need to state how many can go at one location. My preference is they all go in one spot and have a food court. No advertising except for the name of the vendor and a menu. No flags, banners, signs flapping up and down 98. They have an annual fire inspection.
Hang on one second. Let me see. Okay, let me get the flags. Okay.
I think that's all I wrote down on this topic. I think we just need to come up with some regulations. Because right now there are none, and every day more and more and more and more. And it just looks bad aesthetically.
Okay. All right. So far, we've got some good points. Yes, sir?
No, I mean, you're supposed to.
Oh, yeah. Everybody like those points so far? Yeah, I think.
What if you agree with some and not others?
Yeah, with that list, with that list, we could have some, but we might discuss some of those.
Okay.
Okay, I think that would be a good discussion, a starter for a discussion.
Hi, Lisa Harper.
Hey, Lisa.
One thing that I'd like to add to what Nancy just said, and that is, what is the parking situation going to be on those lots? Because we're seeing a lot of overflow and spillover onto personal property or private property. So that's another issue of that buffer that we were talking about, whether there is some kind of buffer and something that says no parking beyond this point. Because it's, obviously it's a city street, but they're not wide enough to handle the overflow that we're seeing trying to turn around in a dead-end street.
Okay, so that's basically falls under,
Like the restaurants would,
Say,
you know, have the appropriate number of spots for their maximum capacity that they're serving during the lunch period or something.
just remember, if we don't talk, we don't learn, so I appreciate all the input. Things that we might not think of as council members. Okay, who's next? Yes, sir. That's fine. We'll give you a minute.
Attitude,
Eight
thanks,
minutes.
I'm getting old. And maybe Nancy said, because that was one from here, but, and it's kind of like Chris, should know how many trailers can we authorize on a lot? If it's a small, narrow lot, is that gonna be one trailer? If it's a larger lot, is it gonna be two trailers? And then again, you have to consider parking on the number of trailers in that lot. But I think you should set a limit on the number of lots, or trailers per lot.
All right, I just will real quickly go over this list that she went, and number of trucks in general, do you feel like those should be limited? Just raise your hand, you think the number of trucks in the city should be limited? Okay. Okay. What about the amount of time they can stay in one spot? Okay, good. Do we need to define, goodness, what did we were defining, Linda, I got definition, of trailer versus truck. What was that, Nancy?
Temporary.
Temporary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
defining temporary.
I was trying to get my shorthand, I couldn't read it. Okay,
Because LDR states that they can be there temporarily, but it doesn't state what temporarily means.
and I think the previous council, when this all came about, and I don't have the date that ordinance was put in place, but, you know, we were in a bad place. And we were allowing food trucks in temporary because we hoped to get our brick and mortars back. But we couldn't have done what we've done and been where we are without Michael and Tex and some of the others coming in here. Okay. All right, so we're going to define temporary. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to look at them being safe? Because they are actually inspected by the state. So,
By the fire, fire and hood inspection twice a year.
Health
as well as
department.
Health department 3
Hang on.
times a year.
yeah, so they are kind of inspected. So do we need to look at their safety? Okay.
I think they were talking safety in general, just, was that not? Were you talking safety in general as far as access to them and accessing roads and things like that?
Yeah, not blocking traffic and stuff.
Okay. So safety and basically location.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ingress or egress.
Ingress, okay. All right. Buffers. Do you think there needs to be a buffer between them and a residential area?
I think that's in the LDR too.
I think it is too, yeah. And Rich agrees. Restrooms and hand washing stations. All of them?
It's mandatory if you have seating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seats.
So,
I know that some of them don't have it.
so let's move to parking. Ben, please, let's keep it. Let's move to parking. So if we're looking at restrooms and hand washing and parking, those are like 3 big things that a food truck, I think, would, because parking creates safety issue. So, hand, restrooms and hand washing, I think y'all said that that's something that's mandatory. Do all our food trucks have restrooms and hand washing stations currently? Do we know?
No.
That would have to check my code enforcement, that's one of the things I would suggest doing right away.
Okay.
I mean, we have some of these rules we already have, it's a matter of enforcement.
Gotcha. So, when we bring that to the council, we'll need to talk about what we want to make sure that those are covered. Okay, so, fire inspections, do y'all get fire inspections?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good there. Location. Everybody think that there may be, I'm just gonna put it this way, and I've had some messaging and emails. Michael Benz, he owns his property, he's been there, he came in, he's really put it in a nice place. Then they feel like, a lot of people that I've been get messaging from says, we need to leave Michael alone. We need to grandfather Michael in. I'm not saying we are, we ain't, I'm just giving a reference to what I've been asked by others. But location, should we have, do y'all think we should have like a food court area, maybe in different places throughout the city, instead of having them just willy-nilly stuck on a piece of property? Yes, sir. All right, so that's about 50. Yeah.
You know where to put them. I don't see where you can put a selection of 4 or 5 food trailers. If you say Parker Park, don't make me get up and tell you again why it can't happen. There's no infrastructure there to do that. There is no infrastructure.
Will we create infrastructure?
You're gonna build 5 sewer, water, gas taps.
Well, how is it done on these private lots, Michael, when?
They have sewer, water, and gas, because they were
Every single
commercial
one?
businesses on these commercial pieces of property. And there was commercial.
No.
Yeah, 27 is not commercial.
Especially at the
27
sand
was
base.
tourist commercial.
Okay.
But it has commercial in its.
Do you need to leave? I really need y'all to stay. I want this to be a good informational exchange meeting, okay? So let's keep it nice. You can have, you can stand up.
I just would,
No,
I'd
let's
like
stand
for
up.
Michael to come up and talk to us.
Okay, good.
Because he seems to know a lot
He
about
does.
this, and he would be one that maybe could enlighten all of us.
Okay, so I'm Michael Scoggins, obviously. Regarding what I said about the infrastructure at Parker Park, it will take a massive outlay of the city to have that place rigged where everybody could come in and have their own separate utilities and infrastructure to operate their business. If you can't bring them all in there and have them come and go every day, you tear the park apart. You want to have events there in the park all the time. If it's even the farmer's market, no room for the farmer's market, the parking, and 5 food trailers in there. You don't have the infrastructure to hardly run an event there with the power without it going down. So to put that stress on it, it's just not, I just don't see it happen. So unless you, I know, I appreciate being the one who has been here and it's recognized and all that. But I also hate being the one that has to be held up for an example, because somewhere down the line, it's going to come back and go, why do they get to stay there? And it's been brought up in this meeting before too by certain people, you know, why do they get to stay there? You know, I don't know. All I can say is I keep trying to do my best for this town, and you know, the other people here are on a legitimate business thing. They're not coming and going and taking their money. Tex is here every day and serving people who are spending their money in this town. Pay a sales tax. I don't know how much of that goes to whatever, but the Kent family owns that property and they're paying taxes on it. Whether it's improved or not, I don't know. That's up to the tax assessor to decide if that is improved property. Petition the tax assessor to decide and make that decision. Yeah,
So-
I don't,
Let me just ask you,
okay.
being a businessman
Mm-hmm.
and knowing where we were before the storm and where we're at now, what do you think about the food trucks being in so many different areas and interrupting neighborhoods and?
I don't understand except for one instance where there's a neighborhood that's affected by this. The other ones are on 98 in a fairly commercial area where the pizza truck is and where the barbecue truck is. Those are pretty commercial. And if you're talking about the beach rental, that's in an area that's not affecting any neighbors there. If you're talking about any trailer in general, then well, let's see, the pristine property trailer is not affecting any neighbors there. So, I mean, if you're lumping trailers in, or are we just talking about food trailers here?
I think we do need to specify
So, you
whether
know,
it's the beach rental trailer
you
sitting
know,
there.
again, all these people entered into business with a legitimate lease on the property they've engaged in. They have the obligation to that landowner to fulfill that lease for whatever time that may be. So,
I don't know that any of us were here, maybe Jerry, were here when, after the storm and when you came in and when we made the ordinance for food trucks that we currently have.
well, nobody ever really discussed an
What was your-
ordinance of food trucks with anybody, at least not me.
Well, let me ask you this, when you came in, did you think you were gonna be temporarily here in a food truck?
I knew I'd be here as long as I was allowed to be here.
That's what you said at the meeting. Exactly what you said.
But when they started allowing food trucks, and it says in the ordinance temporary, did you think you were gonna be here 5 years later?
No, I didn't know what was gonna happen in this town. You know.
Were your expectations that you would be here?
Expectations were not to even be doing as well as we're doing right now. So I'm blessed to be having, you know, the business that we do now. But I also recognize that there's not enough business to go around to put out $500,000 to $1 million to build myself a new little place like I had before. I just drove down the street and every place is closed. I mean, all the trailers, food trailers closed at night. And Mango Marley's has got 2 cars in the parking lot. So if that's the only food place in this town that's desolate of food, you know, building a restaurant right now, that's folly. And Toucans, I wish them well, but that's, you know, fortunately they've slow rolled this thing themselves, and you know, there's not going to be a business there for them to operate Toucans and anytime soon. There's not going to be enough people to operate Toucans anytime soon. Fortunately, they don't have to worry about it just yet. Just got to worry about their other place getting open. So, you know, everybody in this town is trying to do what they know how to do to make a living. This is what I know how to do to make a living. That's what Tex does for a living. It's what he's always done for a living. He's cooks, and he's happy to be where he is. Yes, he's on a leased piece of property. The place was, as Adrian brought up a couple of weeks ago, the place was submitted and approved for a little multi-food court, and Mike Kent had the original trailer there and had another one there too for a while, and that thing went away. But I don't know how many it was approved for. I seem to remember Mike's drawing having 3 trailers in it. Whether he's too close to the fence there with his, I don't know. Maybe you guys can look at that. And everything else on an individual basis. If there's a buffer issue, talk to that owner. Say, hey, put up a decorative fence, put up a little barrier or something, make it prettier. If it's the flag issue, we got a sign ordinance in this town. My God, I remember when I first got here, I couldn't put up one of those signs on the side in front of my building saying that we had it. No, your sign was your awning across the top of your building that said Killer Seafood. No signs for you. So, you know, you got an enforcement, you know, you don't like the flags? You got a way to get around that, so there's your issue with all of that. Otherwise, you know, if you want the trailers to improve their property and make it look a little bit better, ask them nicely to do that. They want to be a positive influence into the community. They want to do well. They don't want to look like a crap hole on the side of the road either. I think they've spent good money on these trailers. I have a pretty good idea what they've spent on all of them. So, You know, they're not fly-by-night people who are gonna come in here and go down to Callaway and do the same thing tomorrow, and down to the Lookout Lounge the next week, and down here. These people are here invested in building, you know, building at least a base for the community to have decent food and a variety. So it's, you know, I understand that, you know, there's an idea of a food court, and that would be a cool little place, but there is no place to do that here in this town that would allow the access to that. You know, the access to the park down the roads, to Parker Park down, all of those roads for any event is dicey. You have to go out the back and through the neighborhood to get to that. That's going to go on all day if you've got 5 different food vending businesses down there. In the back road, out the back road, through the parking lot. Where are they going to set up? How are they going to do that? I don't know.
What about the number?
Sorry.
How do you feel about the number?
Number? I think we've got plenty right now. I don't know if there's any more commercial pieces of property that they could possibly be, especially on 98, that anybody could do anything from here on out. So if they wanted to come in for an event or something like that, yeah, direct them to there. The only place you can come in for 4th of July weekend is Parker Park. For Memorial Day weekend, hey, I'd like to bring a food truck in. Yeah, you got to do it at Parker Park. Set up a little infrastructure for 2 or 3 places that can come in and do that and service the events and the markets and all the other stuff there. But if you're trying to set up a permanent infrastructure for all of the other food trailers except Killer Seafood, I mean, that's...
Well, we can make the move over there too.
Yeah, well, that's all. Let's bring the beach rentals, let's
Yeah.
bring the pristine properties, let's bring every trailer in town over there.
Michael, talk about the parking.
Parking, you know, if you don't have the parking, it should be a take, grab, and go, and not have the seats. I don't mean to knock the taco truck either. I absolutely have no contact information who even owns that, but to have that many picnic tables out there and no parking for those people is ridiculous. It really is. I got parking for every single one of my tables, and I think all the other places have enough parking for the few tables that they have out. Mama Jammas, I don't know. I haven't counted their tables. I know they count heavily on the public parking across the street, which is, yeah. But then again, you know, public parking in the district, restaurant district, or whatever business district in there. I don't know how many parking places you guys have decided are in there, but for Mango Marley's, whatever could be in the Fish House, the other district, whatever could be in Beach Walk, whatever could be in that big restaurant space. Parking there, that one's going to be tight too. That one's going to be real tight. So parking's an issue everywhere in town. And you know, there is no parking on the right of ways on the side of the 98 or in the city streets, right? You got ways of enforcing this. Just start ticketing the hell out of everybody.
I know you're here permanent. Do we know when this season ends? I counted 11, and not all of them they were trailers on food things. There were 11 trailers from 3, whatever it is, to the canal thing. When the season ends, how many people are going to be here permanent? Because my thoughts is a lot of these food trucks aren't here to serve people that live here. They're here to serve tourists.
Everyone who's been here has been here through the low season. Not one of them left during not one single one of them left during the.
Has anyone asked why?
During the winter.
Excuse me?
You gotta eat.
You gotta eat.
So yeah, nobody. To your answer, that Rick, nobody left during the all
They've been
season.
here.
Every single one, right down to the taco truck, stayed here right through the winter.
And another thing, you talked about you having to spend $500,000 to build, and it's not, well, my daughter's spending $500,000 on the corner of 27th Street. That ain't quite what she looked forward to be 15 orange cones, flag flying everywhere. And
I get that.
you know, I love Mexican. I don't love to smell it every day.
I get that. When we drove down here just now, I said to Amy, because I saw it the other day when I saw the Duke Energy trucks out there, I thought they had laid the cones out because they had some further down towards the cottages too. I thought it was something they had done. And I was like, oh no, that's the parking issue there. Again, isolated incident, put the signs up, no parking, violators will be ticketed. Ticket on, ticket towed. Hector'd love to have another job towing. Right?
How's that, hang on, how's that been working as far as the cones go? I talked to Lieutenant Williams, and he said a few days after he.
I mean, I don't think it's a 100% solution, but
Right,
I think it's shown a pretty good improvement.
It's not pretty.
it's not
Looks
pretty.
horrible.
It's
I agree.
Yeah, I thought it was construction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Can I make
Thank
a
you.
statement to Michael before?
yeah,
I
you
leave?
can ask.
The best statement I've heard about the food trucks, actually Michael said the last time, we don't have a problem with food trucks. We have a problem with a food truck. That, it's the location of it. They used to be across the street by 36, there was no problem. But now they come in and it's, and I think the city council needs to protect citizens. And that's, I don't think that is protected in that location.
And I will say that, in my opinion, that if you do for one, you do for all. So if you have, and you
Yeah.
have ordinances, then you enforce those ordinances for everyone.
But that's, I think we're already at that. We have a lot of these rules. I mean, if you take your book out and you read through it, there's rules for the food trucks that they have to go by. There's also rules by the state of Florida that there should, if you have seating, you have to have a wash station, you have to have a bathroom, you have to have a business license, you gotta have a handler's license on the inside, there's gotta be a manager on the inside. Those are things that we can enforce and then go forward. I've been to every meeting about food trucks, and the main thing that keeps coming up, and the reason is, I believe that this came up, is because we put one on residential, commercial property that was originally a condo, and we just upset the whole dang place. So rather than dealing with that, we're trying to deal with everything, and I really think we ought to focus on a problem. And we can go to anywhere in this book, and I found several of them. How many times have we talked about safety? If it's a safety issue, all we gotta do is call a code enforcement officer, tell them to go down there and tell them they need to relocate. We made a bad decision. We found out it's a safety issue, and be done with it.
So now, regarding new food trucks coming into town, you wouldn't allow a food truck to just come in and just set up anywhere. Does that happen in Mexico Beach? Can they do that?
They're not supposed to, but.
They're not
you know,
supposed
if
to,
we
because
have-
I had somebody come and ask a couple of years ago if they could come in and sell plants in my parking lot. Well, I don't know if I got room for it, kind of be busy. But I called Ike, and Ike said, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, they started unloading all that damn plants, and all of a sudden I was like, nope, can't do that. So if somebody can't come in and sell plants, somebody shouldn't be able to come in and just start selling food either.
Right, and that particular incident there, I think they were legal. They were on commercial property. And it
And
was
they
a
had
personal-
Ike's permission.
Yeah, and
So,
they were,
that's it.
and they were temporary. They met the ordinance of temporary. They were gonna come till their plants and
I
leave.
tried to help them out.
I know you did.
All right, thank you guys, I
Trust me, I heard
appreciate it.
about it. Okay. Yes, Annie?
And I know nothing about this, but I just want to ask the question.
State your name.
Sue Hogan,
Okay.
7th Street. The parking area where the pier is that we were talking about it the last meeting, I think. Are all those condos along there gone? Were they washed away from the storm? Okay, so is all of that the Mexico Beach's property?
No, the parking is Mexico Beach's, but not the land itself.
Okay. So that would not be an option to use for some food trucks until the pier is built, which is completely down the road.
I mean, obviously it would be up to the council if they wanted to use the South 37th Street for food trucks.
Okay.
The city does on 0.23 of an acre there on that road. But if you put it out in the middle, then you're losing parking, and parking is already at a premium in this town, as we've already discussed.
Okay, just curious.
I had one thing about that.
Mark,
Thank you, ma'am.
go ahead. You come on up. I'm gonna let her ask her question. Come on
In
up.
reference to, I was just, to what Sue was saying about 37th Street, there is a food truck there right now. I think that's Hector's food truck. He also has the parasail, the boat, and the jet skis. Can you reassure the citizens that he's not going to go down to the water right there where the pier is gonna be in the future? Because what is his plan for that?
I mean, I haven't spoken to him about it, but he was at the meeting where he knows that he's not supposed to use 37th Street as a beach access
Okay.
point.
I just need some reassurance on that. that
Or
it's not
storage
gonna-
for his rental equipment.
Right, because he's backed up against the fence, and that's townhomes, I'm sure they're not real happy about that. Because all that equipment is lined up against that fence, and then they're gonna have the food truck with the, of course, they're gonna get to whatever he's cooking, they're gonna get that, but, to add all the extra, his boat and the jet skis and all that, and I'm thinking, where does he think he's gonna go with all that? Is he gonna go on down the road and put it in the water there? That's a concern that I need reassuring. Personally, I think the citizens as well, that he's not going to use that.
I've already made a note to call him, so I'll give him a call tomorrow, see what his
Okay.
plans are.
Okay, come on, Mark.
I didn't hear Mr. Wolf. Well, you just made a statement.
Do we permit him only for a food truck?
Yes.
Then why would he have his rental equipment there?
Yeah.
I don't think it's renting. I think he's just storing it for just a split
Why
second.
would he be storing it there?
I think he had to move it from one property to another in the meantime.
It's for a food truck, that's what he has authorization for.
Oh, yeah. I don't, yeah, just call Hector, but I don't think, nothing's operating at that place right now.
But as a code enforcement, should check it. It's storage. I mean, I didn't look at the, we need to think about that. Chris, he
Okay.
probably doesn't need to be storing it there, he can store it at his home. Okay, go ahead.
I'm very emotionally attached to this city. And I also tend to get a little carried away, so if I get too direct or anything, I'm gonna apologize in advance. Sitting here, what is the goal for the food trucks?
Honestly, I don't know.
I would think it would be to create a service for our residents
Yeah.
and our
It's part of-
vacationers, right? Create a win-win situation, win-win-win situation.
Do.
All I hear is regulations, right? So I just sat back there and said, boy, I don't want to bring my food truck over here. So what I'm saying is, what is the goal? I think we could come up with a great plan with all these ideas if somewhere to kind of like consolidate it all, get the issues, and then come back with some ideas, almost a committee kind of thing. Because we need the food trucks, you're right, we do.
I think everybody supports that.
And then make it, regulate like this gentleman here with the cones and all that. That's a tough pill to swallow, right? It looks like a construction zone. So maybe there's some regulations that we put in to make these things, more attractive, like Michael does. It's a tourist stop because of the old captain and all that, and the guys with the Mexican food. They've done a nice job. I don't know anything about the tables, but they've done a very nice job of creating an ambiance. And I think that's some of the regulations that might need to be, I don't think regulations, considerations might be.
And I think a big problem is safety, parking and safety, safety with parking. I think it's the number of food trucks that we want to allow and where we want to allow them.
Well, are they
So I
within
think
their
it's-
setbacks?
Yeah,
You know,
are they
and all
meeting
that.
all the
Right.
regulations? And, I'm gonna let Chris tell us, I had asked him to prepare where our current food trucks are located, and then tell us a little bit about where other commercial properties commercial residential properties that could come up and say, hey, we're gonna rent to a food truck. Because I think we need to be looking at that now for deciding and making our city needs to
There should be no
regulate to some
ambiguity,
degree.
right? And I would be willing, I'll volunteer to be on, if this does happen, to be on the committee, because, look, they're gonna be a part of our life, and let's make some money from it, right? Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I think it's going well. Anyone else want to step up and give us an update? So good to see you, Rob.
How is everybody on the council tonight? Rock Crease, Mexico Beach, and Planning and Zoning. I went to every food truck last week, 2 weeks ago, talked to every owner, said Bad Mama Jama, they were shut. And
there's a problem that doesn't exist. There's one problem that anybody even heard of is 27th Street, and that's it. There was no problem with anybody, nobody on the planning and zoning board that I could find, people talking to me, had a problem with anything. It was just the 27th Street deal. You know, before the hurricane, you had X amount of little restaurants scattered around. Parking was a nightmare. You couldn't go anywhere. I mean, even Mike's place, Killer, you couldn't find a parking spot. You went over to the grocery store that was shut down, you went here, down side streets, whatever. Parking is always going to be a problem here. Don't create a problem. We don't have restaurants. I mean, look at Toucan's. Oh yeah, they're going to build. What's that going to be, another year? I mean, we have nothing here. The food trucks are a great service, and I talk to every owner. Every owner would love to buy a piece of commercial property here. They can't afford it. The prices are insane. They would love to buy a little lot somewhere and put a brick and mortar store up. They can't afford it. The prices are nuts. They all want to be part of the city. They don't want to cause a problem. They just want to have their business. They're supporting families. They're working hard. And, you know, like I said, I talked to everybody. And the only thing I seen was in the LDC, looking around for everything. Between residential and any kind of commercial, you're supposed to have a 10-foot barrier, 6 feet high, whether it's bushes, a fence, or whatever. And the only person right now that has that is Tex-Mex. And the owner had a fence there before, so he has all the stuff up there. And half the places already have porta potties. They have portable hand wash places. A couple of little regulations like that saying, hey, get the porta potty, get the hand wash station. The parking issue is the thing that you guys are going to have to resolve. And it doesn't matter what's there. It doesn't matter if the food truck goes away and Joe Blow comes back with a little pizza shop. Parking is going to be an issue just like anywhere. It's not going to change. The 27th Street deal, I tried to talk to the guy. He doesn't speak English, so the person with him translated. And he's trying to get, he'd like to rent the lot next door to make that parking, which is also general commercial. And I told him to come down here, talk to you guys, get property information, and try to contact the owner to do that. Because he realized that the parking's a problem. And the biggest thing that parking there is a problem, because that was, yeah, it's commercial, but it had a 2-bedroom, I think, a duplex there or something before. So the people on the street aren't used to it. And that is a narrow street. I had to make a three-point turn in my golf cart to make a U-turn when I went down there. I'm like, so I can see the people being annoyed. They're not used to anybody coming down that street and everybody's coming down there. So that parking thing needs to be done, or you guys regulate something and say, hey, 27th Street is too small, there's not enough parking, no, food truck can't go there. Food truck can go over here, but it can't go there. That's up to you to decide. You should go out there and look at that. But there's not a problem. Don't create one.
I don't think we're trying to create.
Well, I know, but let me tell you, I mean, this is going snowballing where everybody's this and this. Nobody's complaining about anything. Only one place, 27th Street.
No, that's not true.
Huh.
We get regular emails, texts, calls. We're having to answer to every day, and I mean,
but is there just somebody bitching, or is there actually legitimate something going on? Because even when you had these restaurants here, you had complaints on people, this and this with parking and everything else.
I don't think we're trying to create a problem. I think we're trying to listen to the citizens, find out what their thoughts are, and then we can look at the LDC, we can figure out, you know, is there anything that really needs to be changed in? You and I both know, we've been on this planning and zoning. The LDC, a lot of times it'll say here one thing, say over here something totally different, opposite or add it to, and it's convoluted. I mean, you know, it's just all over the place sometimes on some things. So do we need to look at that and make sure that it is straightforward? Do we need to make some changes? We make changes to ordinances all the time here in the city. Is there something we need to change to make it better? We're not we're not trying to make it worse. We're trying to make it better.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, the only thing you should really be looking at is the little things. Bathroom, hand wash station, the parking, and maybe regulating and saying, hey, if this lot is so big, it can only have 2 food trucks. It can't have 6. I mean, that's 3 simple little things to look at, and look at the ordinance for enforcing the ODC. Ask the guys to put a fence up. I know when I talked to, what was it, Point Break Pizza, they already talked to the owner of the property and said, hey, we'll put a fence up. And the owner said, yeah, that's fine, I'm not going to pay for it, but if you want to do that, go ahead. But that's in there. And that'll clean it up a little bit and make it break a little bit from when you had a building there. You know, you're not looking at the houses down the street, because you're going to have a barrier there, and that's already in the LDC. just try to keep it simple. Don't beat people to death. They're doing a service, they're hardworking, and we have nothing else here.
And I don't think we're trying to,
No, I don't think they utilize.
I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to just really, let's come together and think about it. Look at it. Y'all are giving us ideas in reference tonight to look at, and then we'll bring this to the council after all of us have time to look at things and do our research and determine, is there something we need to change to make things better for everybody? For the food trucks, for the citizens, the residents, what can we do different?
I got one last question.
Okay.
Is there the difference between brick and mortar and a food trailer? So if I want to build a restaurant, I'm going to have a whole lot of rules and regulations and blah, blah, blah. Are they the same for the food truck?
Yep.
They are?
Yep. Those basic operating procedures, yeah.
The operating, but I mean, the construction of the building and the bin hoods and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's all I want. Thank you.
I don't think we regulate any kind of parking right now. I don't know that we're not regulating location as long as it's a commercial, residential commercial area. So I don't think I think there are some things that we could do better. And what exactly those are gonna narrow down to will be up to the council to decide. But we really appreciate y'all's input on this, because I think it's important. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to hear Mr. Hubbard say how many lots are available.
Yeah. So did you put together the proposal I asked?
I've never heard you ask that question until
It was in
tonight.
the email.
I haven't seen that email.
Pretty much it's every lot on 98, right?
Look, if you look at the map up there,
Uh-huh.
that map is on our website. I mean, if you go to our website, you can find it. But it is the purple ones, and it's pretty much everything, I want to say.
It's all west.
I think it's all
now.
west. Yeah, it's pretty much
I
from,
mean, I knew we had this,
from
so.
40th Street all the way down to 26th. And then if you go to the west side, it's 26th all the way to 29th. And some of them go 2 and 3 deep.
But you know, what we can do as a city, the city council can vote and limit, you know, we're suggesting that we limit the numbers. You know, I think there have been problems other than 27th Street. I think we're minimizing food truck problems. We're discussing also the image that we want to have for this town. And if we have 11 now, you know, we don't put regulations on it, we could have 20 by next year. Is that the image we want as we ride through our town? 27th Street, that lot is for sale, and it's the reason we priced, and there has been a lot of inquiry about that lot. So, you know, it could sell and then he's gonna have to move somewhere else. I've heard somebody has also inquired about Sharon's, putting a food truck there. So, you know, as the city council, if that's what y'all want, maybe we should consider in a meeting making a motion to limit to, we have 11 right now, maybe we need to start really limiting, and then that way all that property cannot be used.
Were you contacted by the person wanting to put the food truck in at Sharon's?
I heard that through a rumor.
Okay, because nobody's contacted City Hall to the best of my knowledge
Yeah.
about that.
Is it Sharon? I'd love for Sharon to open a food truck.
already
I missed breakfast.
I already
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that number could be 10, and then, so it's 10. And if somebody puts one in, you go through the whole process, but you don't get a place until somebody moves out.
Yeah, and somebody made a recommendation that we give, if we're gonna say, let's just say we're limiting it to 10. And we can talk, because we are in a public meeting. If we limit it to 10, and we said, okay, well, we're gonna give you, we can give you I don't know, not a lease, but a year's permit or a year's whatever to stay there, and it has to be renewed each year. And if they're not following the rules, then you get them out.
30 days.
You just have to be careful with the property owners, and make sure that they understand what we're doing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, this would have to be an ordinance. We'd have to change our ordinance. We'd have to make sure everything's outlined. And I think our attorney would be able to help us with that for sure. So,
Have we checked, you know, I hear how expensive it is if you went to Parker Park. Do we know how expensive it would be?
I don't think anybody's checked.
I mean, I go to St. Augustine, a lot of cities, they put them, they have a designated park. If they're paying $500 to $1,000 a month, how long would it take to recoup whatever it took? To me, I like food trucks. I'd like to go and be able to choose, but I think, and I am 27th Street, I have a problem, yeah, I do, I'll admit it. But Parker Park, we talk about how much it's used. I've been coming here 60 years. And I'm gonna tell you, the farmer's market, they all go to St. Joe. We might have 3 here. We have music in the park. There's 365 days in a year. The park may be used, what, 20, 30 days? I've been, you know. So it's a central location. It gets them off of 98.
Okay, so you're making a recommendation of Parker Park?
I make a recommendation to find out what the cost is. If it's cost prohibitive, forget it.
Is the road still going through Parker Park to the development?
We don't know yet, because I actually haven't had any contact with them since Chris has been with us.
I'm sorry, I just was asking.
I thought that Adrian said it was going through next to where they're gonna build the new, civic center.
It's going through 27th Street. I'm kidding.
So, in a nutshell, I think my take is, we all agree that the food trucks are a good thing. We just need to get a little bit of handle on how we do it, right?
Yeah, and I think really, my whole purpose of this meeting was based on all the phone calls, all the messaging, and it wasn't one section of town either. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. It's not just 27th Street. And it's based on us coming together and seeing how we can support our food truck industry as well as support our residents and property owners.
Win, win, win.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I'm on 14th Street. I understand that was one of the locations being looked at, and I think it's not a good idea. It's a dead-end street. Same thing as 27th Street. I'm already dealing with everyone tearing up my yard. I've had to have my water shut off redone twice because other people think it's okay to do so. Plus, all kinds of other safety issue. I turned the corner this weekend, golf cart rental. Stopped in the middle of the road, loading and unloading, totally blocking 2 ways. What if we need an emergency service?
I don't think 14th Street would be the best area. But it's just an area that could be considered. I'm not making any rules or regulations or saying we're gonna do anything. But 3 places were brought up. 3 places are options, I believe, and that's Pier Road, Parker Park, or 37th Street, which is where the Pier Road is, Parker Park, and 14th Street where the fire station is. But
14th Street isn't commercial or anything else, it's
No.
just a fire station, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even designated area yet.
Right, but it is our property,
Correct.
so it would be,
Library.
the library there would be. I think a kid's playground, like a big building with, you know, where they go in and get all these jumping things inside the building and they're out of the bounce houses, yeah. Yes, John?
John Harold, 43 First Street. I have a question about Parker Park, since people are mentioning Parker Park. Haven't there been food trucks there before for events? Were they hooked up to water and sewer, or were they just
Self-contained, just had power.
self-contained? Is the truck on 27th self-contained, or is that hooked up to water?
It took up to water, electricity,
Previously there.
and
Yeah,
sewer.
there was,
And
water
sewer,
was there
okay.
previously.
But we've had food trucks at Parker Park that were self-contained. They did not have to have.
They weren't overnighters or anything, they just came in for
Yeah,
an
in
event
and out.
and then left.
Okay, but they operated.
Yes, sir.
So why can't a food truck operate there? Like an overnight? I mean, do they have to?
Over event, pull in, pull out, they can.
No. You have a food truck, comes in for an event, pulls in, operates, then leaves, right? Are they hooked up to water or sewer? Or they're just self-contained, correct? Yeah. Okay, so why can't food trucks that are gonna stay there 30 days be self-contained? Is there some kind of, something in the LDC, or is there something that
I don't think
is a problem with the state?
Cost prohibitive.
Is that?
You have to take it to some place to have it commissary, where you can store it overnight. It's an approved location by the health department.
Okay, that answers the question.
And you have to unload your gray water, take on your fresh potable water.
Got it.
Refill your gas tanks.
Okay, that answers my question. I was looking for some kind of solution where they wouldn't have to hook up, and it wouldn't cost us, when I say us, I mean us taxpayers, because we are the city. But you answered the question there, it's cost prohibitive, so I understand that they have to clean it out, and, okay, that makes more sense then.
I did add, I just so happened seeing, Bay County, what are they called? But anyway, in Bay County, in Panama City, they don't have any permanent food trucks. They come in, they go out, they have only a certain number of hours that they can stay.
That's not true. Places downtown Panama City have food trucks that are there permanently. El Weirdo Tacos, right behind the whatever the district class brewing or something, they have a truck right behind.
Do they have to
Stays-
go out every so often?
They stay there all the time. The No Name Bar, Tex came from there. He had another truck there, never left.
Okay. So, I'm not sure, it was the Bay County, what is that called, was in the park?
That's what she said, just announced on their website that they've announced a permanent location that truck will be parked out of the bar in downtown Panama City.
Who was that? Who went to the park? I'm having a brain. The Bay, no, where we did ribbon cutting, that was Bay County,
Recreation.
what was that?
Chamber?
Chamber of Commerce, I could not think of that. I'm thinking CCC Community something, maybe. Chamber of Commerce lady had told me that they had actually they had that come up and it was never approved. That's what she had told me, for them to be there other than a short period of time. I'm just telling you what she told me. Yeah. Okay. I think we've gotten a lot of input and a lot to think about. Anybody else want to add anything to our meeting tonight? Hang on, rocks up first.
All right. Just to add, listening to conversations coming from here to you guys about Parker Park, which, I mean, I really don't see a problem with Parker Park utilizing food trucks, but you're gonna have to look at two issues. One, like the gentleman said about the infrastructure going in there, is going to be, if you put all the food trucks in one place, you're going to worry about coming out on a 98, especially in the summertime. When you have an event, you have the deputies out there directing traffic. That's going to be like an everyday thing at noontime, if you have all the trucks there. Because that's where everybody's going, you got one street to come in and out. The other thing, if you even look at that, to do an ordinance or whatever, make sure you look at the people who own property that have food trucks, that would be an exception. They don't have to move in a park, they can stay on their own property because they own it. So those are the two things you need to look at, besides the infrastructure. The parking getting in and out, and that.
I agree with that.
I think
We're
the
still doing
suggestion,
hands.
I think the suggestion, maybe back here, I'm sorry, maybe Mr. Falk? Maybe?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Putnam, he used to be on the council.
I think his suggestion of getting a cost to do it would probably be the right step, because I've heard the conversation, I've added to that conversation as far as the sand pack that's in there. And that will not withstand a 20,000 pound trailer in there, in and out. And it will, I mean, you can't even drive a car back there in that backside. And when we bring trailer trucks, we bring them to the front side where it's hardened. You'd have to bring in packed dirt and have that all rebuilt also.
But it's something to look at.
Certainly, get the cost.
Yeah.
So who would be a good resource to go to have that checked out? Does anybody know?
Probably our engineer.
Engineers, plumbers, people that do the work. My biggest question is, how about redeveloping Parker Park into the food truck area? And I'm wondering, is that erase all the things that the city has planned? I mean, we spent thousands of dollars planning on Parker Park's development for the future, and you know, we've already started working on the budget as far as city staff is concerned, and there's things in the budget just to try to move that forward. So I guess my biggest concern would be if we go in there and put infrastructure in for food trucks, what happens whenever we want to develop that park, or do we just forget about developing the park?
Maybe we could study that, because it is very much an underused park, very much. And that might bring life to that park, because more people would go in there and use that playground. More people would go to the solitaire market, you know, every 2 weeks. That's very low attendance there. More trucks would probably want, more vendors rather would want to come to that as well. I think it could bring life to that park. It's greatly underused.
During your study, you can also limit how many trucks you allow.
Yeah, that's
You
exactly.
can allow
And
5 there.
when you have events, you already have your vendors there to serve the event. But let me ask you something, Chris. Some little birdie told me that you had already promised that they could go on to Pier Road 37, food trucks on our property. That it was a done deal.
You need to stop listening to the little birdies.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you a question. Is there
I was at City Hall all day today.
infrastructure there?
I've not approved
to
anybody to
support?
go anywhere on 37th Street.
I'm just saying. It was a discussion between you and someone. But anyway,
There was no discussion held between me or anybody else about a food truck going in on 37th Street, other than Hector's there on the privately owned property where the gas station was.
okay, but my question is, apparently you had some thoughts about it because you come to us and asked us about you sending out letters to the property owners there, see if we could probably buy some other properties there. Is there the infrastructure on those particular properties that we own?
Yeah, there's infrastructure there because there was townhomes there before.
Okay. So what kind of impact?
It's 0.23 acres. A couple of them are larger. Basically, if you go down 37th Street, as you're going down looking at the beach, it's on the left-hand side in between the wooden fence posts.
This lot was 17.5 foot wide.
By 70.
But they was long, but they wasn't a 17.5 foot wide.
0.04 acres, each one of those lots.
And there's how many of them? 4?
I'm not sure because it looks like some have been combined. When you look on the property appraiser's website. Like I
Wasn't
said,
that purchased with grant money?
Yes.
Does the grant money have stipulations on what you can and can't do on that property?
That's what I was.
it was originally purchased with the intent of doing something commercial there.
Well, I thought it was for education. I really wanted to put like an educational thing there at one point, with like sea life and turtle, with the turtle. It was on during one of the discussions, I don't know.
So did that grant allow for development or just purchasing?
Well, that's turtle.
That just purchase? Can we get that, a copy of that grant?
I have to find it. I'm not seeing it.
When was that purchase, Chris? Was that before the storm or after the storm?
Oh, it was after the storm.
Wasn't that long ago.
Do y'all remember much since y'all were on the city council
I
at
think
that
like
time?
2021.
Do you remember much about the grant and the
Yeah,
purchase?
we got 500,000, that's what the grant was, we was gonna buy that property. When the pier does get back, maybe the city could put something there for tourism that we could go out of
All right. I think we've had a good discussion. Y'all have anything y'all want to talk about while we're here, while we can talk? Anything? Any recommendations? You want to come back? Y'all want to look at everything that's been discussed here and possibly put this on one of our future agendas to look at maybe a new ordinance?
In regards to that, the city council tasked the planning and zoning board at the last meeting for the planning and zoning board to look at these issues. Should I tell them to not worry about it now because the city council is going to do it, or?
Well, they did say that,
I mean, they had their meeting I don't know that there was much accomplished long range there. I mean, if y'all saw the meeting, that's my opinion of it. I mean, there was some discussion, but I don't think there was any conclusion to their
No,
discussion.
you're correct. They wanted more time to research the issues and find out the problems, you know. Like Rock said, he went out and talked to all the food truck owners before that meeting.
And that statement there
No, but we,
flooded my phone. And
we really have no direction on what you want us to
Right.
do. If it's going on the park, if it's going on the commercial property, I mean, we gotta have a little bit of direction to look at from planning and zoning
And I
board
thought-
what you want.
yeah, I
We have no
thought Rich,
idea what you actually want.
I thought Rich did say what we, the motion did have in what we were looking for y'all to
We
do.
got a couple line items there,
Yeah.
we did. I think they're looking for more, and I think this list is a good example of what they may be looking for. We
Yeah.
did task them to look at it, I think it'd be fair to give them a meeting or so to at least go over these items added and come back to us.
I think you should look at the park thing first and get your infrastructure and see if that's even an issue, an item you want to address. And once you get that, then bring it back to the planning and zoning board to look at that, and then we can give you all the input, like, if you're gonna do this, this is what we recommend. At least a little bit of direction there. Is it gonna stay out here, or is it going like all together somewhere?
And I really think that's probably a discussion for the council. I don't know that there's much more, you know, we got the input from the citizens through our workshop. We're here at the table, we're able to talk a little bit. Richard and Linda are all, everybody's giving good input from the council that we should probably, take what we got tonight and, you know, maybe, think about what we wanna do and then task the attorney to write up a new ordinance based on whatever we come back to the table with.
Well, I mean, we could take the suggestions, like, do we want to limit the number? Do we want to think about one possible location? If we're thinking about a Parker Park, but then we can pursue an engineer. We have an engineering company. We could have them pursue that piece of property. Is it a possibility that we could build the infrastructure there, or is it, you know, is it a problem that we can't do that? So those are things that way we're taking the input y'all have given us and doing something with it. I think if it goes to the planning and zoning, we're just kind of, you know, kicking the can down the road a little bit and nothing's going to be accomplished. But maybe, you know, as the city council, we can try to pursue those, make some motions and try to get what you're asking us to do and make something happen.
And, you know, nothing says it has to be limited to one spot. We may say, okay, well, over on Pier Road, that's gonna be a perfect place for 5 trucks. Over in the park, 5 more trucks. Then we have, maybe on this end of town, one property that we are willing to let the people rent it, and we do the, you know, year thing, renew your fee, or, I mean, not your fee, but your stay. And then maybe some, you know, we got Killer and Tex and Mama Jones on this end already. We just let them do it. Well, we wouldn't with Michael because he owns that property. Maybe with the rental people, we just keep an eye on, because we don't want, let's just say, in my opinion, let's say Tex-Mex says, Tex leaves. Do we really want somebody coming back into that spot? Is it conducive of somebody coming back into that spot? Or is that something, once they leave, they have to come back to us to say whether they get permission to go to that same spot again, somebody else?
I think we're
That's
really gonna have to get our attorney involved as far as when we start telling people they need to move off of commercial property. We better
Well,
have
we
it
can
together.
regulate the commercial property, even though if it's commercial property, it doesn't say every piece of commercial property in here is gonna have a food truck on it. We can say that.
Well, we have rules to monitor, we have the ability to do that. I'm saying where you have current leases right now that are in place and we're gonna tell somebody they gotta move. we
No,
better
we're not
get
gonna be telling them to move,
somebody involved.
but if their lease runs up, do we say, okay, well,
If we limit the food trucks, that would.
the number, it would might keep them from coming back? I mean, if somebody else coming in there that may not be as great as Tex keeping up the property or something. It's just, you know, just discussion. Food for thought. Yes, ma'am?
Sue Hogan, 7th Street. I just think you all need to make a decision on how many food trucks you're gonna have, before you go anywhere else. You said we have 11, and then you need to decide before you start making all these grandiose plans and what you're gonna do with them, how many are we gonna allow in Mexico Beach? We can always add later, but with this project that you're working on now, set a number.
Is that 11 including Michael? Because I don't think, Michael.
I'm trying to count the 11 to start with.
Yeah, I'm not seeing 11, I'm seeing 1, 6.
Hang on.
9 including me.
I remember the number before was like 7, and then, yeah, I think we were told by code enforcement, Chris, we were told by code enforcement there were 5, and then Nancy said there was 7, and that was just a few meetings ago.
I think there's currently 10, that's my number.
Can I bring this back to Nancy, can we bring this back to the table? You got, please let us hear, okay? We were just discussing the numbers. So you had come to a meeting or two ago and said that you had counted 7 food trucks. Code enforcement said there were 5. You said there were 7, and now we're hearing that there's 11 in just a few weeks. So, Chris, how many do we have?
I came up with 10.
We're counting
10 if you count vendors.
We're counting
Count.
Okay, there's Bahama Mamas, there's Killer, there's 3 at Tex-Mex, there's 2 on 27th, there's a pizza place and a barbecue place, and then there's Hector.
That's 10.
So,
Hey,
possibly.
ask Rock, he talked to him.
Okay.
So as we, as what Sue said, if we want to start with limiting, so the next meeting, we could possibly make a motion to limit to 10.
Right.
We can limit to 10, and then we can go from there as far as decisions about one location, if we want to pursue anything in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah, Tim King. I think that's what I think it is, regulation. I think the city has to have some kind of regulation. I spoke to a gentleman that lived on, 27th Street? Yeah. And the man told me that him and his wife came through here with a camper back in 1978, and his wife said to him that day, we need to buy a house here, and they did. And this man doesn't feel comfortable now in his house. You have traffic coming up and down his road. I mean, that road's too narrow. And then the area when they're parking there, I don't think we have any problem with food trucks. I think we have a problem with a location.
Well, I think we got some regulation problems.
Yeah, that's true. I think you need to get a grip on it before it gets out of hand. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. So, with the issue on 27th Street, I haven't pulled up regulations out in quite some time, to be honest with you. I pull them up on the computer, just lines as I need them. But, is there anything that's being not enforced on the 27th Street property? We know there's a safety issue. We know the cones look ugly. We know the flags don't need to be there because they are definitely against code.
They need a hand washing and a bathroom.
With the parking situation, do they not need to have picnic tables and be a grab and go station? And then we wouldn't have to worry about the parking.
Right.
We wouldn't have to have the cones out there. We wouldn't have to worry about them going down the street. They could have to put a barrier between them and the house. I'm just asking, Chris.
As far as the buffer, even Rock and I disagree about the buffer issue, so.
Well, it's not what we think about. I'm asking about the code.
Well, I'm talking about code too, because the buffer's in the code, and like I said, I disagree with some of the people who say there shouldn't be a buffer there. I think it meets our requirements as far as there's no buffer required. As far as everything else, the bathrooms, the hand washing stations, I mean, we haven't typically enforced those. If those are state requirements, I can check and see if we can enforce those.
In the LDC, aren't they, Rich?
I think another problem on 27th, at first, they had all the electrical wire exposed.
Right.
We had to ask them to bury that, but there's still a temporary pole there with a lot of wire coming out of it that's very low. I did call the real estate agent who notified the owner of that because, you know, I'm concerned for their benefit as well. That's a liability for them. A curious child could easily reach those wires. I don't know if our code enforcement could possibly check that, and maybe that temporary pole could become a permanent pole, but that's another concern that people have about the 27th Street location.
Here's the buffer thing. Development restriction, buffers shall be in the form of fencing, landscaping, or other similar means necessary to mitigate traffic noise, lighting, trespassing, or any other nuisance.
It's not there.
Well, the next page, the chart on the next page, it tells you between any type of residential and commercial, doesn't matter, even if it's separated by a street, there will be a buffer.
Yeah.
You know, another thing on that location though, couldn't they improve the parking because it's so dusty there? I went there and it's just like, every time a car pulls in or out, it's just like,
If you look at the section of buffers where Mr. Wolf was just reading from, and this is why Rock and I disagree. You can look at the chart, but under buffer zones, you know, section C, subsection 1, where it discusses buffer zones being required, it says buffers are required in between incompatible uses as defined in table 4.01.06. So that's a use and zoning is different things. Right now, there's no incompatible use. It's next to a vacant lot. So there's no incompatible use.
But the vacant lot is residential. But that property on the end is commercial, and it's two different zonings. If you look at the chart, on the next page, if you look at that chart, it goes right there. And it tells you, boom, they collide, and it says you'll have a buffer.
Yeah, it does.
Uses and zoning are two different things.
Okay, so change in use would have been probably an issue they would have had to come to the council for, because a change of use, you're supposed to have the same like use. Well, that was a condo, that's a food truck's not the same like use.
Right. But it's also a temporary use.
So how temporary is it? So how temporary is it?
Their lease is for 6 months.
Still, they said they hadn't lived for a year.
Yeah, but we knew it, so I was
I wonder why they moved out
That,
there.
again, that's where we as the council needs to make sure that our ordinance for food trucks have all those little bits and pieces, not just in those different areas, but all in a food truck ordinance.
I think all of this is here so that we can not rule the city, that's not true. But so that we can manage the city. And there's some things in here that say, if it's a problem, we can fix it. We made a mistake. We made the wrong call.
Yeah.
And we've created a monster. We need to kill a monster.
Right. We have an enforcement problem.
Okay, with that, we're going to, see if, oh yes, I forgot your hand, we'll go, come right on up, sir. Sorry about that.
All these trailers are great. I think they're awesome. They got great food. I love street food, but my God, they're charging sit-down restaurant prices. Insanely expensive prices. Except for Michael, because he makes a killer product. It's crazy high. And something, I mean, a lot of the locals that live here are retired. They're on fixed income. You can't afford to eat there. It's sit-down restaurant prices for street food is insane.
We don't regulate that.
I understand. So maybe they're hearing me because I don't see a lot of locals stopping in there.
Yeah.
They're getting the tourists. They're down here spending the tourist money. We're not tourists. I've lived here 22 years. I refuse to pay sit-down prices for street food. It's good food, but it's not worth 3 times what it's crazy. And I eat street food all over Boston, Portland, New York. It's a little high, but it's really high here. So that's all I got to say. I think they're great. They got fantastic food. But my goodness, they need to reel the prices in.
I agree.
Agree? All right, I really appreciate it. Anybody else at the table have anything else you want to discuss while we're here about this? All right, then we will motion to adjourn.